I let my roommate borrow my car for a week, only to find out she wrecked it and lied about what happened. I never imagined that one simple favor would change everything. It started as an innocent request from my roommate, Jessica, one that I never thought twice about. We'd been living together for about a year, and we got along pretty well. We had our differences, of course, but we made it work. Jessica was the more spontaneous one, always up for new adventures, and I was the cautious type, planning everything out in advance. Still, we shared a bond as roommates, and we respected each other's space and boundaries. Jessica didn't have a car. She had moved to the city from a smaller town a couple of years ago, and with the cost of living and other priorities, she hadn't gotten around to buying one. I, on the other hand, had my own car, and it wasn't unusual for me to help her out by driving her to places or lending her the car when she needed it. She was always appreciative, and I was happy to help. Over time, it became second nature for us to share when it came to transportation, as she didn't mind chipping in for gas whenever we went out, and I didn't mind giving her a ride or letting her borrow the car if I wasn't using it. One Friday evening, about 3 months ago, I was sitting at home after work, winding down with a book. The apartment was unusually quiet, which wasn't a bad thing. I'd gotten used to the hum of everyday life, the occasional music playing from Jessica's room, or the sound of her talking on the phone. But that evening, it was just me, the book, and a cup of tea. I had just started to get comfortable when Jessica came into the living room with a hesitant look on her face. "Hey, can I talk to you about something?" she asked, her voice tentative. I looked up from my book, immediately sensing that something was on her mind. "Of course, what's up?" "Well, I have this wedding to attend next weekend. It's my cousin's wedding, and it's pretty important. I need to drive out of town for it, but I don't have a car. I was wondering if it would be okay for me to borrow yours for a few days," she asked, wringing her hands a bit, clearly nervous. I paused, taking a moment to process her request. It wasn't the first time she had borrowed my car, but a whole week? That was different. I had always been cautious about lending it out for extended periods. It wasn't that I didn't trust her, but cars were expensive, and I took great care of mine. I wasn't used to just handing it over, and the idea of her driving it around for a week made me slightly uncomfortable. That being said, I also knew how much it meant to her. Jessica had mentioned the wedding several times, and I knew how important it was for her to be there. It was a family event, and she had been talking about it with a lot of excitement. She wanted to catch up with relatives, make memories, and enjoy herself. It was clear that this wedding was more than just a social gathering. It was something special to her, something she was looking forward to. I said, setting my book down and looking at her seriously. "A whole week? I don't know, Jess. I've let you borrow it for a day here or there, but a week is a lot longer than I'm used to." Jessica looked genuinely disappointed, but she tried to hide it behind a hopeful smile. "I totally get it, I really do. I can see why you'd be hesitant. But I swear, I'll take care of it. I'll only drive it to the wedding and maybe around the area a bit. I won't take it far, and I promise I'll return it clean and full of gas. It's just that renting a car is super expensive, and I can't really afford it right now." I could tell she was really trying to convince me, and for a moment, I felt guilty. She didn't have much, and I had always been the more stable one financially. I could afford the car, I could afford to help her out, and I wanted to support her when it mattered. "You're right," I said, finally relenting. "It's just that, well, my car is important to me. You know how careful I am with it." She nodded eagerly, the look of relief washing over her face. "I promise I'll be careful. I know how much you love your car. You won't even know I had it." I hesitated for a moment longer, but then sighed, realizing that I was probably overthinking it. If I didn't let her borrow the car, she might not be able to go to the wedding, and I didn't want to be the one to prevent her from going. I trusted her, even if I had some doubts about how responsible she might be with something as precious to me as my car. "Okay, I'll let you borrow it," I said, giving in. "But please, take care of it. It's not just a car, it's my only one, and I rely on it." Jessica practically beamed with gratitude. "You're the best. I swear, you won't regret it. I'll bring it back exactly how it was. I won't drive it too much, and I'll make sure it's spotless when I return it." I smiled, feeling a little relieved, but also a little nervous about what I had just agreed to. "All right, just be careful, okay?" She gave me a quick hug, something that had become customary whenever she was especially grateful, and left the room to start preparing for her trip. As the week passed, I kept myself busy with work and other things, trying not to think too much about my car being out of my hands for such a long period of time. I had a feeling that everything would be fine. After all, Jessica had never caused me any problems before. I tried to trust her, and I reminded myself that this was something I had agreed to. It wasn't like I hadn't helped her in the past. I had. By the time the day arrived for her to leave, I handed her the keys, double-checked that she had everything she needed, and reminded her one last time to be careful with the car. "Thanks again for letting me do this," she said, giving me another hug before she left. "No problem," I replied with a half smile. "Just take care of it." And with that, she was off. I thought little about it over the next few days. Jessica had her wedding to attend, and I had my routine to follow. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something might go wrong. Something always seemed to go wrong when it came to trusting people with things that mattered most to me. I had no idea just how right I was. The first few days after Jessica took the car went by without incident. I didn't hear from her much, but that wasn't unusual. She had a lot going on with her cousin's wedding, and I knew she was likely busy with travel, family, and catching up with everyone she hadn't seen in a while. I didn't want to be overbearing, so I kept my distance, sending the occasional text just to check in. "Hey, hope everything's going well. Don't forget to send me pics from the wedding," I wrote casually. Her response came quickly, full of enthusiasm. "Everything's amazing. Wedding was beautiful. I'll send pics soon. Thanks again for the car. It's been a huge help." I felt reassured. She seemed happy, and I was happy that she was enjoying herself. She had been through a lot lately, especially with the stresses of her job and living paycheck to paycheck. So, I figured this was her time to relax and have fun. But something began to feel a little off when the weekend came. Jessica was supposed to return the car by Sunday afternoon, and I had already planned to use it to run some errands, since she'd be done with her trip. I sent her a message around 2 p.m. asking when she expected to be home. "Hey, I hope you're having a great time. Just wanted to check when you're planning on getting back with the car. No rush, just need to know so I can plan my day." I didn't think much of it at first when I didn't get an immediate reply, but as the afternoon wore on, I started getting anxious. It was unlike Jessica to leave someone hanging, and she had always kept her word about returning things on time. Around 5:30, I decided to call her. It rang a few times before going to voicemail. I figured maybe she was just caught up with something. After all, weddings were busy events, but I still felt a knot of unease tighten in my stomach. It was now almost 6, and I needed my car soon. "Hey, Jess, just checking in. I've been trying to get a hold of you. When do you think you'll be home?" I left a message, trying not to sound frustrated, but the tone of my voice betrayed my irritation. Another hour passed. No response. By now, I was starting to worry. She had always been good about keeping me in the loop. If she was running late, she'd text me or call. I checked my phone a few times, hoping for a message, but there was nothing. At 7:30 p.m., I sent another text. "Hey, I really need to know when I can expect the car back. I've been waiting all day. Can you give me an update?" Nothing. The silence felt like it was suffocating me. I wasn't trying to be unreasonable. All I wanted was for her to communicate with me. But as the hours stretched on, I couldn't help but feel like something wasn't right. By 9 p.m., I could feel the frustration bubbling over. I had reached out multiple times, and she hadn't responded to a single message or voicemail. I stood by the window in my apartment, staring down at the street, my eyes glued to the empty parking spot where my car should have been. I had no idea where she was or why she wasn't responding. I decided to drive around the block to see if maybe she had parked somewhere nearby. As I walked out of the building and stepped into the cool evening air, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread creeping up on me. What if something had happened? What if the car had broken down? Or worse, what if she had gotten into an accident? I drove around the neighborhood slowly, scanning the streets, but there was no sign of her car. No sign of Jessica. My mind raced with possibilities, but each thought seemed worse than the last. What if she had wrecked it? What if she was avoiding me because something had gone wrong? My stomach churned as the worry began to shift to anger. Finally, at 10 p.m., I got a call from her. I almost didn't answer it at first, too frustrated by her lack of communication, but I picked up anyway. "Hey, where the hell have you been?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "I've been trying to get in touch with you all day. The car's supposed to be back by now, and you haven't said a word." She sounded a little flustered on the other end of the line, almost like she was caught off guard. "I'm really sorry, I've been out of touch. I just had a bit of a crazy situation. I'll be home in about an hour, okay?" I felt a sigh of relief at first, but my heart was still pounding in my chest. What do you mean, crazy situation? What's going on? There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Jessica finally spoke. So, there's something I need to tell you. I don't want you to freak out, but I had a little accident. My pulse quickened, and I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean, accident? Is the car okay? Jessica, what happened? I felt panic rising in my throat as she hesitated. It's not really okay, she finally admitted, her voice shaky. I hit a curb pretty hard, and the front of the car got dented. I didn't think it was that bad at first, but when I pulled over to check, there was some damage to the tire, too. I don't think I can drive it back tonight. I didn't know how to process her words. My mind was racing as I tried to keep calm. Wait, what do you mean, you hit a curb? You're telling me you wrecked my car and didn't even let me know until now? What the hell, Jessica? I'm really sorry, okay? She pleaded. It wasn't intentional. I didn't think it would be that bad. I swear, I just got a little too close to the curb. The tire's still holding up fine, but I think I should take it to the shop tomorrow to get it checked out. My anger flared. You should have told me immediately. Why didn't you call or text me? Why did you wait until now? I didn't think it was that bad. I swear, she repeated. Please, just let me fix it. I'll pay for whatever repairs are needed. I don't want to cause any more problems. My head was spinning. A part of me wanted to scream, to vent all of my frustration, but I kept my voice steady. You should have told me when it happened, Jessica. I can't believe you just let me sit here all day waiting and didn't say anything. Now you're telling me this after the fact? That's not okay. I'm really sorry, she repeated, sounding genuinely remorseful. Please, just let me fix it. I'll pay for everything. I'll take care of it. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. My mind was racing with a million thoughts. The car wasn't just a possession. It was an important part of my daily life. I relied on it for work, for errands, and for peace of mind. I never imagined that lending it to her would end in something like this. I want you to bring it back here tonight, I said, my voice still tense. I'll figure out the next steps. We'll have to get it towed or something. You can't leave it wherever it is right now. I'll be there soon, I promise, she said, her tone more apologetic than ever. The line went quiet as we hung up, but the anger still burned inside me. My roommate had wrecked my car, lied to me, and made me wait all day without any communication. I had trusted her, and now I was left with the aftermath of her carelessness. The worst part? I still didn't know the full extent of the damage. And worse, I had no idea what would happen next. I waited by the door, my mind racing with a mixture of anxiety, anger, and disbelief. Jessica had promised she would be back soon, but the hours seemed to drag on with each minute that passed. It was already after 11 p.m., and the thought that I might have to deal with this whole situation in the middle of the night didn't sit well with me. I kept thinking about the way she had handled things, avoiding the conversation all day, letting me sit in the dark about the car's condition, and only confessing at the last possible minute. I was furious, but I was also just tired. I glanced out the window at the empty parking spot where my car had once been parked so proudly, and a pit grew in my stomach. I had always taken such care of my vehicle. It wasn't the most expensive or flashy car, but it was mine, and I'd worked hard to pay for it. I didn't know what had happened to it, but in that moment, I felt a sense of loss, a feeling that the trust one had in Jessica had been ripped away. At around 11:30, I heard the familiar sound of an engine approaching. I rushed to the door and opened it just as Jessica pulled into the driveway. She parked the car carefully, but I noticed right away that she was driving it much slower than usual. When she turned off the engine, I stood there for a moment, staring at the car. It was worse than I had imagined. The front bumper was scratched up badly. The right side of the car was dented, and the tire on the passenger side was visibly slanted, like it had been severely damaged. The car wasn't just in need of a small repair. It looked like something that had been through an accident. My heart sank as I looked at it. Jessica got out of the car slowly, avoiding my eyes. I could tell she was trying to gauge my reaction, but I couldn't hold back anymore. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Jessica, what the hell happened? I asked, my anger bubbling up despite myself. She flinched at the tone, but didn't try to avoid me. She sighed and ran her hand through her hair, clearly exhausted from whatever had happened. I told you. I hit a curb, and it did more damage than I thought. I didn't mean to. I just got distracted. I walked up to the car, inspecting it more closely, my frustration mounting with every dent and scratch. This is more than just hitting a curb, Jessica. This is a serious accident. The tire is bent, and the front bumper looks like it's been scraped against something hard. How did this even happen? She shifted her weight from foot to foot, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. I was trying to park on a narrow street, and I was in a rush. There were other cars around, and I didn't want to be in anyone's way, so I ended up getting too close to the curb. When I felt the car hit, I thought it was just a minor scrape, so I didn't think much of it. But when I got out to check, I saw the damage, and I freaked out. I didn't know what to do, so I decided to just drive home and figure it out later. I was silent for a long moment, my mind processing her words. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something wasn't adding up. A scrape on the curb didn't cause this level of damage. She'd hit something much harder than she was letting on. You're telling me this happened because you hit a curb? Jess, I don't buy it, I said, my voice flat with disbelief. The damage is too much for just a scrape. There's no way it was as simple as you're making it sound. She bit her lip, looking down at the ground. Okay, fine. You're right. It wasn't just a curb. I tried to park too close to a concrete barrier. I didn't see it until it was too late, and when I tried to back out, the tire got caught. That's when I heard the sound, and I panicked. I didn't want to admit to you what happened because I knew you'd be mad. I stared at her for a moment, taking in her confession. My suspicion had been right. She had tried to downplay the situation to avoid the consequences. But it wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about the fact that she had lied to me, avoided the truth, and allowed me to believe something far less serious than what had actually happened. She was trying to minimize it to protect herself, and that was what hurt the most. So, you're telling me that not only did you wreck my car, but you lied about it all day? I asked, my voice calm but heavy with hurt. You let me wait here, wondering where the hell you were and what happened to the car, and you couldn't even be honest with me. Her face turned red, and she looked genuinely ashamed, but she still didn't seem to grasp the full scope of what she had done. I didn't want to disappoint you, she said quietly. I knew you'd be upset. I wasn't thinking straight. I should have called you sooner, I know. You should have told me the truth from the beginning, Jessica. I replied, my voice firm now. I would have preferred that you were honest with me. I would have appreciated it if you'd called me the second you realized there was a problem, but you didn't. You waited until the very last minute, and you still haven't even given me a clear explanation of what really happened. She opened her mouth to say something, but closed it again, clearly at a loss for words. The truth was, there was no excuse for her actions. She hadn't just made a mistake, she had been reckless and dishonest, and now I was left dealing with the fallout. I felt a rush of anger and hurt, but I didn't want to lash out at her. I needed to stay calm and figure out what to do next. What are we going to do now, Jessica? This is a serious repair. I'm not just talking about a dented bumper. I need to get this fixed as soon as possible. She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. I'll pay for the repairs, I swear. I'll take it to a shop first thing tomorrow. I'll cover everything. I promise, I'll make it right. Making it right isn't just about paying for repairs, I said, my voice colder now. It's about being honest, taking responsibility, and not making excuses for your actions. I don't know if you can fix the trust that's been broken, but you can start by not lying to me anymore. She stared at the ground, her face full of regret, but I could see that she knew I was right. The car wasn't just an object to me. It was a symbol of my independence and my responsibility. I relied on it every day, and now it was damaged, not because of an accident, but because of her carelessness and lack of accountability. I understand, she said softly. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll make it up to you, I promise. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure if her promises meant anything anymore. All I could think about was how differently she had handled the situation. She had lied to me, avoided the truth, and put me in a position where I had to take responsibility for a problem that wasn't even mine. She didn't just wreck my car, she wrecked my trust in her. I need to think about this, I said quietly. You can't just undo the damage by saying sorry. You've broken my trust, and that's not something I can just overlook. I need time to figure out what to do next. Jessica looked at me, her eyes filled with guilt, and I saw for the first time that she truly understood the gravity of what she had done. She had no defense, no way to explain her actions. She had hurt me, and now she had to deal with the consequences. I'm sorry, she said one last time before she turned and walked back to the car. I'll take care of everything. Just give me the chance to make it right. As I watched her go, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, betrayal, and a lingering sadness. I didn't know what the future held for our friendship or our living situation, but one thing was clear: things would never be the same. The next few days were filled with silence. Jessica had taken the car to the repair shop, as promised, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the damage to our relationship was far greater than any dent or scratch on the car. She had wrecked my trust, and the pain of that betrayal seemed far worse than the damage to the vehicle. Every time I thought about the situation, about how she had lied to me and hidden the truth for so long, I felt a mix of anger and disappointment. I tried to go about my normal routine: work, errands, hanging out with friends, but the situation with Jessica kept eating at me. I had lent her my car out of kindness, and I had expected nothing more than a little care in return. I didn't ask for much, just that she would treat it as her own, that she would respect my belongings and my trust. Instead, she had gone behind my back, downplayed the extent of the damage, and left me in the dark for an entire day. One evening, I came home from work to find a note on the kitchen counter. It was from Jessica. It read, "Hey, I just wanted to say again how sorry I am. I know I messed up, and I understand if you're upset with me. I've paid for all the repairs and tried to make things right. If you want to talk about it, I'm here." I stared at the note for a long moment, unsure of how to feel. I wanted to be angry with her, to lash out and tell her everything I was thinking, but a small part of me, something that had always believed in the best of people, wanted to give her a chance to make things right. I had known her for a year, and I knew she wasn't a bad person, even if her actions didn't reflect that. But that didn't change the fact that she had broken my trust, and I didn't know if I could just let that slide. I walked into the living room, where Jessica was sitting on the couch, her eyes downcast. She looked up when she heard my footsteps, and the guilt was written all over her face. "Hey," she said softly, her voice hesitant. "I know I owe you a real apology. I shouldn't have lied to you, and I shouldn't have waited so long to tell you what happened. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I know I messed up." I crossed my arms, trying to stay calm. "You're right. You lied. You avoided the truth, and you made me wait all day without knowing what was going on. You could have been honest with me from the start." She nodded, her face flushed with shame. "I know. I didn't want to disappoint you. I was embarrassed, and I didn't want you to be mad at me. But that's no excuse. I should have told you right away, and I'm really sorry I didn't. I don't even care about the car as much as I care about what happened after," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "You didn't even have the decency to let me know what was going on. I've been sitting here all day, worrying, thinking you were just being irresponsible. And all that time, you were avoiding me. I can't just ignore that." "I know," she whispered, her eyes filling with tears. "I let you down. I'm really sorry. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to lose your trust." The raw sincerity in her voice was hard to ignore. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to forgive her and move on from this. But the other part of me, the part that felt hurt and betrayed, couldn't just let it go. She had lied to me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that, deep down, she didn't truly understand the full extent of what she had done. "I need time," I said, my voice softer now but firm. "I need time to process everything. I don't know if I can just forgive you right away. You've broken my trust, Jessica, and that's not something that can be easily fixed." She nodded, her face crumpling as she fought to keep her tears in check. "I understand. I'll give you all the time you need. I just want to make things right between us. I don't want to lose your friendship over this." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "You didn't just damage my car, Jessica. You damaged our friendship. I don't know how long it'll take to rebuild that, or if it can even be rebuilt at all. But you can't just throw apologies at me and expect everything to go back to normal." "I know," she said quietly, wiping her eyes. "I'm not asking for things to go back to normal right away. I just want to prove to you that I'm sorry. I'll do whatever it takes." The sincerity in her voice was clear, and for a moment, I saw a glimmer of the person I had known before. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever go back to how things were. How could I trust her again after everything that had happened? How could I forget that she had lied to my face, downplaying the damage and keeping me in the dark? The feelings of betrayal were too strong, and they were hard to shake. "Just give me some space," I said, my voice softer now. "I need to think about this. I need to figure out if I can even trust you again." She nodded, her lips trembling as she tried to hold herself together. "I'll respect that. Take all the time you need." The next few days were awkward and strained. Jessica seemed to be doing everything she could to avoid making the situation worse. But the distance between us was palpable. Every time I looked at her, I was reminded of what had happened. It was hard to look at her without feeling a rush of anger, and just as hard to pretend that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I spent a lot of time alone in my room, trying to process everything. I didn't know if I could ever forgive her for the way she had handled things. I didn't know if I could ever trust her again. I had always believed that friends, especially roommates, should be honest with each other, but Jessica had broken that rule. And now, everything felt different. It felt like our entire friendship had been built on shaky ground, and one mistake had brought it all crashing down. The car was fixed, and Jessica had paid for the repairs, just as she had promised. But the damage to our relationship seemed more permanent. I wasn't sure if I could get past what had happened, or if this was the beginning of the end for us as friends. She had been careless with my car, but worse than that, she had been careless with my trust. And that, more than anything, was what hurt the most. The days that followed Jessica's confession were filled with a heavy silence. We coexisted under the same roof, but the bond we once had felt irreparably strained. I went through the motions of everyday life, working, cooking, watching TV, running errands. But there was a weight to every interaction, a tension in the air that was impossible to ignore. Each time I glanced over at Jessica, I saw not my roommate, but someone who had broken my trust. The person I had known was still there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the foundation of our friendship had cracked, and nothing could fill that gap. Jessica, for her part, was doing everything she could to avoid making things worse. She gave me space, no longer pestering me with attempts to talk. It was as if she was giving me the time I had asked for, respecting the distance I needed. But that didn't mean everything was okay. Her presence felt like an elephant in the room, ever present, but awkward and uncomfortable. We would have brief, polite conversations about bills, chores, or the weather, but it was clear we were both walking on eggshells. Every word felt like it had the potential to set off another argument or reveal the rawness of the wound she had caused. I knew that something needed to change, but I didn't know how to get there. I wasn't even sure what there was anymore. Would I ever be able to forgive her? Would our friendship return to what it was before, or would it forever be marred by this betrayal? The real test came a few days after the repair was completed. I had been avoiding the idea of driving the car, still unsure about whether I could just pick up where we left off. The damage had been fixed, but something inside me still bristled when I thought about it. The car was a symbol of trust, of independence, and of responsibility. And Jessica had mishandled that symbol, both literally and figuratively. But I needed to know if I could let go of my anger, if I could allow the situation to heal. So, when I woke up on a Saturday morning, I made a decision. I walked into the living room, where Jessica was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Hey Jess," I started, my voice a little rougher than I intended. "I think we need to talk." She looked up immediately, her eyes wide, and I could see the anxiety flicker across her face. "Okay," she said, setting her phone down and straightening up. "I'm sorry if I've been making things uncomfortable. I know I messed up. I just don't know what else to say except that I'm sorry." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I know you're sorry. I can see that. But it's not just about the car anymore. It's about everything that happened, about how you handled it, about the way you lied to me, about how you kept me in the dark for so long. You didn't just damage my car, Jess. You damaged my trust." I could see the color drain from her face, and she lowered her eyes. "I know," she whispered, "and I don't know how to fix that. I've been thinking about it nonstop, and I keep coming back to the same thing. I know I hurt you, and I wish there was something I could do to make up for it. But I understand if you don't want to talk to me anymore, or if you want to kick me out." Her words hit harder than I expected. They weren't angry or defensive. They were just full of guilt and fear, as if she truly believed that I was about to end our friendship over this. And for a split second, I thought about what that would mean. Would I really be able to just cut her out of my life? Or was there something left worth salvaging? I walked over and sat down next to her on the couch, keeping some distance between us. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Jessica," I said, my voice quieter now. "But I think we need to have an honest conversation about this. We need to figure out if we can even move forward. Because I'm not sure if I can just go back to the way things were. What happened was bigger than just a car accident. It's about how you made me feel like I didn't matter, like my trust wasn't important enough to be honest with me." She nodded slowly, clearly taking in everything I was saying. "I understand," she said softly. "And I think you're right. I didn't just lie about the car. I lied about how much I valued your trust. I took it for granted, and I shouldn't have. I'm sorry for that. I really am." I let her words sink in for a moment, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to vent all the hurt and frustration I had been bottling up for days. But another part of me understood the weight of what she was saying. I could see she was genuinely remorseful, that she recognized how badly she had messed up. But I also knew that words were only part of the equation. The real test would be whether she could prove her sincerity through her actions. "I need time to figure out if I can trust you again," I said, my voice steady despite the emotions churning inside me. "But I think I'm willing to try. Not because I want things to go back to how they were, but because I think we both need to rebuild. Not just with the car, but with everything." Jessica looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and guilt. "I know it's going to take time. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you that I can be honest with you, that I can be the kind of friend you deserve." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything hanging between us. I wasn't ready to fully forgive her, and I wasn't sure if I ever would be. But I knew that I wasn't ready to give up on the friendship we had built, either. Maybe it wasn't the same as before, maybe it never would be. But if we both worked at it, if we were honest with each other and patient with the process, maybe we could rebuild something even stronger than before. "I'm not promising anything, Jessica," I said quietly, "but I'm willing to try. Let's start with being honest, and then we'll see where it goes from there." She nodded, her face lighting up with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. "Thank you. I know I've messed up, but I'll show you that I can do better." The conversation didn't end there, but it was a start. We spent the rest of the evening talking about everything, from the damage to the car to the state of our friendship. There were still a lot of unresolved feelings, but for the first time in days, I felt like we were beginning to understand each other again. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. But at least we were both willing to put in the effort to fix things, and that was something. As the days passed, I began to notice small changes in the way Jessica acted. She was more open, more communicative. She made an effort to help around the apartment more, to show that she was taking responsibility for her actions. She apologized again, several times, and every time, I could see that she was trying to make it right. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. But trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. And for me, the journey was just beginning. Time passed slowly after that conversation. Each day was a mixture of progress and setbacks, of moments where I felt like maybe we were on the right track, and other times where the old frustration would resurface. I couldn't just forget everything that had happened. I couldn't pretend that the trust between Jessica and me wasn't broken. It would take time, a lot of time, to rebuild the bond we once had. But little by little, things started to shift. And for the first time since the incident, I began to feel like there was hope for our friendship. Jessica was doing everything she could to prove that she was taking responsibility for her actions. She was making a conscious effort to be more open, to communicate better, and to not make excuses for her behavior. I saw a side of her that I hadn't noticed before, one that was more aware of how her actions affected others, one that genuinely wanted to make things right. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when I would catch myself feeling angry, when I would remember the way she had lied to me, how she had let me down. But slowly, I began to realize that Jessica was doing the work. She was putting in the effort, not just to fix the car, but to fix the relationship between us. She was listening, really listening, when I talked about my feelings, and she wasn't brushing things off the way she had done before. It was the small things that started to make a difference. Like when she came home from work one day and offered to cook dinner because she knew I'd had a long day. Or when she texted me to check in about how I was feeling, even though I hadn't asked. These little gestures were the signs that she was sincere in her efforts, that she wasn't just apologizing to appease me, but because she truly regretted what had happened. And then, one afternoon, about a month after the car accident, she asked if we could sit down and talk. The request felt familiar, like the first conversation we had after the incident, but this time, I felt like I could approach it with more openness. I agreed, and we sat down in the living room, the same place where we had shared our first real conversation about what had happened. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice more measured than it had been before, "about everything and how much it hurt you. And I know I can't take back what I did, but I want to ask you something." I looked at her, curious but guarded. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I know you're still healing, and I get that. But I want to know if you think we can get past this. If you think there's a chance for us to rebuild what we had. I know I've hurt you, and I don't expect everything to be perfect overnight. But I'm asking because I want to do whatever it takes to make things right." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on the anger, on the hurt, that I hadn't fully thought about what I wanted. I had been stuck in the cycle of feeling betrayed, but now, in this moment, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was ready to start rebuilding. Slowly, cautiously, but it was a step. I sat there, processing her words. "I don't know, Jess. I really don't. It's not just about forgiving you. It's about trusting you again. I don't know if I can ever go back to the way things were. But maybe we can build something new. Something better." She looked at me, her eyes hopeful but still full of the guilt she had carried for so long. "I understand," she said softly. "And I'm not asking for everything to go back to normal. But I do want to rebuild. I want us to be able to move forward, even if it's in small steps." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. I wasn't ready to fully forgive her, but I wasn't ready to give up on her either. There was something in her voice that told me she was sincere. She wasn't just saying the right things. She was showing me, with her actions, that she was committed to fixing what she had broken. "I don't know what the future holds," I said, my voice steady but soft. "But I'm willing to try. For us, for this friendship." Jessica smiled, a real, genuine smile that made the tension in the room feel a little lighter. "Thank you," she whispered. "I know I don't deserve your trust, but I'll earn it. I swear." It wasn't an easy decision, but in that moment, I felt like I was taking the first step toward healing. Not just for me, but for us. It wouldn't be perfect, and it wouldn't be immediate, but it felt like something I was willing to try. Over the next few weeks, things began to improve. There were still moments of awkwardness, still times when I felt like I was holding back, still times when I would be reminded of the hurt she had caused. But slowly, we began to carve out new patterns in our relationship. We started to communicate more openly, to be honest with each other when something bothered us, and we made an effort to respect each other's space and feelings. One evening, after work, Jessica suggested we take a walk together, a simple, peaceful activity that felt like a small victory for both of us. We walked through the neighborhood, talking about everything and nothing. We laughed about silly things that had happened during the week, shared our hopes for the future, and talked about how much we had both learned from the experience. It wasn't easy to get there, but it was the first time since the incident that I felt like we were starting to rebuild something real. Maybe not the same kind of friendship we had before, but something stronger. Something built on honesty, understanding, and the willingness to face the truth, no matter how difficult it was. As we walked, I realized that Jessica wasn't the same person she had been when I had first lent her my car. She had changed. She was more aware of her actions, more considerate, and more committed to being a better person, not just for me, but for herself. I knew there were still bumps ahead, that the scars from the betrayal would take time to heal. But I also knew that Jessica wasn't running away from her mistakes anymore. She was facing them, and that was more than I could have asked for. As we reached the end of our walk, we stopped in front of the apartment. I turned to her and smiled. "Thank you for trying," I said, my voice quiet but sincere. "I'm not sure where we'll end up, but I'm willing to see what happens." Jessica smiled back, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I won't let you down again. I promise." And as I stood there, facing her and realizing that we both had a long road ahead of us, I understood something important. Forgiveness wasn't a destination. It wasn't about forgetting what had happened. It was about learning to live with it and grow from it. And together, that was something we were both willing to do.